Hello, I'm half an arsehole and welcome to Vintage Keys Studio. This is the Hammond C3, once belonging to the late dearly departed Don Shin. This is the Leslie that came with it, the 760. It's been recently done up again by me because these things need constant sort of looking after. I also recently did up the Hammond M102, which is the one that's we're 99.999% sure that this was the one that the Beatles used, or Billy Preston used, in the Get Back movie that everybody saw, and played it on Let It Be, amongst other songs. And if you want to see the clip of that video, or the link to that video, it's here, from 2 years ago. But before, what I'd done on here is I'd actually put a switch on the left cheek of the Hammond, and I've just eaten a jacket potato, so I've got jacket potato on my hand, and I've left a bit of a mark there. But anyway, as you can see, this cheek now doesn't have a switch anymore because I swapped it round with another spare one I've had. So this one is as the organ should be now, and you'll notice that there's also two half-moon switches here, which were kindly donated by a gentleman a few months ago, who gave us a couple of organs and a Leslie as well, and then a bunch of other stuff. And amongst that other stuff were these two half-moon switches. And I didn't really look at them when I first got them, because before, this Hammond was wired up so it would work with the enormous Leslie 910, which we now have over in the corner over there, boxed in so you can't quite get to it, but it needs a bit of work to it. But we will do a video on that at some point. But I thought it was a bit silly having two Hammond organs in this room and then having to have the two Leslies for them as well, which just takes up a lot of space. So what I decided to do was to make a switching box between this organ and this organ to just work with that Leslie over there, which would save having to unplug everything and going behind it and all this sort of rubbish. So firstly what I did is I realised that the kit that came with one of the organs I was donated was hang on a second, it was a 126 console kit, which was for connecting all organs to, I think, a 122 or a 147 Leslie. So the kit that came with the free organ I was given was known as a 126 Leslie kit, and it's like a small little box. You'll see a photo of it now. A small little box that the Leslie company made, lots of the different sorts of them, for connecting up various organs to their Leslie cabinets. And this 126 box, I looked at it and it said it's for connecting any organs, so it's got various wiring scenarios, and it's connecting any organ to a Leslie 122 or a 147 or a similar one. It didn't mention a Leslie 760 because they're different, and they're transistor ones for a start, and all the other ones it mentioned were valve ones. But I thought, well, never mind. If I can just get the M100 or M102 to go through this switching box and connection box, I can probably modify the box a little bit so it will work with the 760 without blowing anything up. The reason why Leslie did all these little boxes originally was because Leslie and Hammond hated each other, and or maybe the other way around. I think Hammond didn't like Leslie, or maybe just the effect. I don't know if they were personal, but they might have been personal. So the Hammond organs weren't easily upable to a Leslie cabinet. You had to get all this wiring and then connect up inside. That's a whole other subject, really. But what I've basically done is I've modified the 126 box for this one. So instead of connecting to an older 6-pin, I think it is, 147 style Leslie, it's now connecting to a 9-pin 760 transistor Leslie speaker.
Addendum, or addenda. I was just in the middle of crying bitterly, as I do of an evening, in a crouching position outside, and I realised I'd forgotten to mention some quite important little bits about the Leslie itself and the wire, the connection. Mainly the fact that the Leslie 760 that I have attached with its own mains lead. originally a 760 or lots of other Leslies are powered from the organ itself. So the wiring that comes from an organ usually has mains electricity coming through the connection wire, which is why it's quite a thick wire. So be very, very careful if you start to tinker with these things, because the idea is that when you switch the organ on, the Leslie comes on as well and starts up. But I always remove that, and I just stick in a separate power socket into the Leslie, because it's just, I find it just easier. And the other thing was the line in that I mentioned, either in a minute or I may have just mentioned, depending on where this addenda is put, has a high value capacitor in series. So the input goes into a capacitor. I think it was a 0.1 microfarad, 250 volt or something like that, maybe a 630 volt, because that's probably all I had, just to protect the whatever you're plugging in, and also yourself. So you plug it in, it goes through the capacitor, out of the capacitor, then into the Leslie 760's input circuit, just in case. It's probably going to be okay, but it's always worth it to just put that in there. Anyway, back to the video.
And the way I've done that, you'd be surprising, it doesn't actually need a huge amount of modification. Basically, all I've done is attached a few wires here and there and added one load resistor, an 8 ohm 5 watt load resistor, or maybe a 10 watt load resistor. And the idea of that is that when this switch here, you've got the main switch, so when it's all wired up properly, this main function just allows this organ to just play through its own speakers. Then you've got the ensemble, which is here, and that now allows you to have these speakers and the Leslie playing. And then if you put it on the echo setting here, it still allows the Hammond to come out of the Leslie over there. And if you've not got the echo circuit on this, no sound comes out of this organ at all. It's just all coming out over there. But if you've got the echo on, or the reverb on, you'll have the main sound coming out of the Leslie speaker and the reverb sound coming out of here. And that's the reason why it needs to have this load resistor on, because what it's basically doing is cutting off the inside amp that is driving the normal Hammond speakers, because this has got two channels. It's got a dry channel and a reverb channel, and they've both got two separate amplifiers channels. So the 8 ohm load resistor goes across the ground and the signal wire coming off of the back of the speakers inside, and you can actually have that on there all the time, because it doesn't make a huge amount of difference if it's not. I think it just makes it slightly quieter all the time. But that's hardwired in over the signal and the ground wire, and that will take the place of a speaker. So when you switch this echo switch on, it won't blow up the amp, because the amp will be expecting to see an 8 ohm load, and if it hasn't got one there, it will sort of, well, it won't like it at all, and it will probably break and overload itself or something. I don't know. Maybe we should try that one day, see what happens, see if it catches fire. It probably will catch fire. So anyway, that's the reason why I had to put the resistor in. And as you can see, it's either chorale, which is the slower whirring sound, and then the faster whirring sound when it's on the tremolo. So you've only got the one or the other. That shows that I've now got this Hammond connected up to the 760 Leslie. But what if you wanted to play this Hammond through the Leslie like it always used to? Well, if you come round the back with me, I'll show you. We have this little switchy thing here, which is, I haven't yet put an enclosure around it, and there'll be some other photos of the back of it later. What I've done is I've taken some old Canon 5-pin leads that came from some old speakers. I only had one Leslie 9-pin lead that had a 9-pin connector on each end, so I've cut that in half and then put the 5-pin ones on the ends of them. And the wiring certainly from this Hammond, you only need 4 wires. So you've got the ground lead, which is very important, the signal lead, which obviously carries the sound through it, the fast motor relay connection and the slow motor relay connection. And the way that they work is they short against, or they short to ground. So when you switch it to the fast tremolo, Leslie, I think it shorts the slow motor relay to ground, and so the fast one works, and then vice versa, something like that anyway. So you basically just need 4 wires for this one. But for the Hammond C3, this one has a different box in it, a different Leslie connection box, and this Leslie connection box is called a 9503 connection box, and that is a powered one, because there's a passive one in here. This one's a powered one, and it needs 28 volts power to power it, and it's got a preamp in it and a couple of other little bits, because the output from one of these is a powered output to go through a speaker, but the output coming out the back of a Leslie C3 is just I think it's just some sort of line level output, because it comes out off of the output transformer, but there's no speaker, there's no sort of no amplifier basically, and there's no speakers built into one of these. So it's just a sort of a line level output. So that needs boosting up with all the sort of various impedance matching and all that kind of stuff. Although saying that, this does actually work if you just plug it straight into a Leslie, but you get strange effects. The volume controls aren't quite what you'd expect. But they work anyway. It's good enough. For this connection, it's got the signal wire, the ground wire, the fast and the slow wires, and also it's got a plus 28 volt DC wire as well, so that's 5, which is handy because I only had the 5-pin Canon plugs. If you'd like to see a Canon plug, let me just show you what they are. Made by the same company that I think used to make XLRs, which is why they are sometimes called Canons as well. But this is a large 5-pin Canon, and very well designed and very well put together. I like these. Very expensive to buy. Don't know if they still make them. So what I've done is I've put a switch on here, which basically is switching between the 4-wire connection for this one, and it switches all those 4 wires over to this organ via the switching, the multiple switch. In fact, it's 3 that it connects over at the time, because the ground can stay the same. So the grounds are all tied together, and also the 28 volts, which is coming out of the Leslie, is also hardwired in, so that's always there, but it's just not connected on this organ. So you've got it coming out of there. Put the switch in the middle to the C3, or sorry, to the left to the C3 connection, and it works on there now. And it also works with the tremolo, I mean the Leslie effect as well here, which is now connected to this switch. And that's the off position. If only we had Don here now, he could be demonstrating this while I was talking. That's the 2 organs between the 2, so switching between the 2 there. Another little thing I've added on there, which saves also a lot of unplugging and messing around, is a line in as well. So if you switch it to another switching position, I've got a little one of our workhorse Behringer tiny mixers, which are always very useful. These little Xenix 802s, which are very cheap and just useful for testing stuff, but sometimes for running things like this. I've just got my Epiphone Casino plugged in to the mixer, and it's now going through into the Leslie input via that switch, and what you can do is, because the way I've wired it up, this connector here for the Leslie will still control the speed. The The organ's not coming out of it, but the switch still works. So I've wired the switch in that way, so... My guitar's not really very much in tune, but... I wouldn't say I was a guitarist, but I can play a little bit. But anyway, yes. So we now have 3-in-1. So we can have M100 if we want to, M102 if we want to, C3 if we want to, or we can plug anything. It doesn't have to be guitar, it could be vocal or anything at all. Flute, it's quite nice. All with a flick of a switch and easy control from the console over here. I'm sure you'll agree that was an awful lot of talking and not very much playing, but I'm very sorry about that. I'll be doing some more videos very soon, and we've got some exciting things coming up. We've got the Osmos keyboard. I'm going to have a bit of a demonstration of one of them. I'm really looking forward to that. And also some really interesting things coming up with some plug-in comparisons and stuff as well. So stay tuned, and good night.